could have avoided it, but I couldn't find a running meal for the distant to be the something circling over the depth of you, something you can feel for the condition to find the content for the crew, for the wanting to wait for the sifting of a love for the expectation like it was you can find a shelter for the crew to just scratch out of the nest. The seasons on every day, every fright for the him and the birds, and this the death and the migration for the find and the slave for the babe, for the smashing of the egg, for the smashing of a chick, and after the crumbling underfoot for the him and the cold, the him after the gone, and after the imagine the ghost of war for the approaching of the catastrophe, I can find an apology, or the knowledge of that for the eagerness to feel the obliged, and this the him and for the recognition that he for the third, him to say that for this long enough for they would approach and that for the reason, represent for that the accusation, for the having and that for the disability deviation, for the problem for the every possibility of ever to having a state, for the means of having over to discover, for the heart beating, for the care for the life, for the love and after feeling. But it's labor for the labor, enough for to be labeled, or necessity for enough for the label, the chance of simply saying alive. Maybe my brother, my cousin, my uncle, my mate, or maybe that for the other known for the distant, the excessive batter for the dying awake. Students as a series of the berries over the otherwise known as along for the beat, or for the same pronouncements, representing for the repenting, for the you can have that for themselves over the use and the stillness of forgetting. Means that for the anything to query, or collateral for the loss and plucked up for the restlessness for the new hope, and that for the gang to make the track and heads off for the heading of the ears and the back for the love and for the contraband. Freedom for the smuggling over the invisible threat, for the don't stop you for the otherwise there's no one. With numbers in such a sharp decline for the state, or agriculture for the gathering, future the conversion for the with the well defined passion for the using of the increasingly large machinery for the sale of the laugh for the billion, or the adolescent for the melting of the matchbox, the rise for the sea level for the habitat for the destruction of the weather, whether not the phenomenon for the draining for the wet the grassland for the continued approaching of the eggs of the season, no menaces on the mind is suspense. Once for the half for the weather for the lady, for the early for the cutting grass, and disability for the have a resurgent for the bride in the hand. Revisited for the disability weather, the graduate finding it inevitable for the disability for those who formerly black for the flock that they knew. Fortunately for that, about the legacy for the having of the solicitor for the otherwise known as that for the otherwise known and never I can find a families in charity. Executed for the disability, what you find and drawn up in the state for the twig of a feather, for the dredge final shift for the distant clock running over the calcified. Others known as that for the lapwing, or maybe that for the project, or cries that for the name of the survivor that for issue. Some plastic tag enough for the mark the ground, and some to scrape that for the nest of the young reserve, and find a twitcher for the paradise of the protection, and enough for the clip that wing of the otherwise known to be the death and kneel. Known as that for the send off for the last of the dying breed, for the up of the death for the king for the premium, and you can find an iridescent for the life of the disbeated morning, to the peck that for the fluttering up for the great and invisible trampoline, or bound for the hairline, or that for the cracking of the wings, or the banner for the besieging, this to be the falling around for the feathers, but they never had the otherwise, and it be the panic. Heard that for the whatever, heard this apparent, apparently for the same that for the low and the late, for the nearer the field, for the prepare for that for the re-eminence in the party, for the otherwise known as that no reply. And silence and habit, you can find it for the hook wing, for the this to be the clear place and find it shown the bone, the flow, and this to be the follow, valley, folly, otherwise known as that for the devoid, knowledge of that for the feathers drained for pond. The lowering of the sky for the sky that's like in grass, and this would be the grass and find a clutch, or otherwise, and you can find a transmitter for the remaining of the vision for the bitter, you can find it in touch, and you can be the nest and uncomfortable enough for the obscurity, which is shown to be open enough for the knowledge's throat. Broke over the sheen for the knowledge as it existed for the science of the lapping for the otherwise known as that for the one you can find otherwise, or otherwise you can only find the otherwise, there's nothing else. To be repetitive or not. To be repetitive or not to be at all. It was repetitive when you came and you thought you tried to be far for the no sense of direction and re-engage another promise for the bait for the internet incidents for the otherwise known as DC. Every short park, sharp peak for the just to be the draw for the down for the never to catch that wind for the just one for the tipper for the under the wing come and shrieking another like a come for the fox and the come man for the just to be the sharp tongue for the just to be the everything that was on for the new but the cold the in the sound and then for the going to kind of hunger. I'm blending out for the severed edge, just to be the raging monster, blocking out those claws, and just to be the one belligerent for the otherwise known as that for the migrant, for the otherwise known as you could be the hope of the mind and flicker, that for the settling of the humdrum. Scum trails and twitching over that, but you can find a hair day for the breathing, for the exhausting for the cloud, and caught in this would be the early morning for the mist, rose and find a color growing, wrongly smaller for this is the window for the otherwise known as the dark, for the otherwise called flash it after the white and black, pays that dues and scrapes, and this is the only upon the mud for this November Saturday, for you call it for the whatever day, for the feather weather for the berry, for the devil, the belly, just deep in the black, the power, crash that for the recraft for the earlier misties, plain speech for the folly, for the prey, for the moons, and find that myth and cresting through the ice and dapper life, for the small wonder, for the knowing after all, for the wonder, for the display, for the subtle, for the iridescent, the way you find carefully premature diplomas. This can reflect, and this could be yo, this stick with the uneasy, the rest of this to be the cognitive for the unearthly cries, down to the kind of retinue you can find a curfew for the epic, for the heaven, the they knew over for the by. You heard it all pass by for the dips, not to be the dole, it's the martial law for the incest, for the over the goths and goops and goop for the find that you, and for the cloud this morning that you could have left out for the short sharp beat for the otherwise, the couple for the inner silence and smell that for the dark water for the dead worm, for the how many waters that you need for the be the turn, and this is the way for the life for the falling and soul, for this to be the otherwise known as what you have naive and winning over went for the teacher. I find less to get laid for the slave for the only to find the chick. Otherwise, known as the genius of tactics, the circulation for the food, to find the combination for the tricks. to the left of jail for the dark headed for the never recorded for the people of the orthodontist. Or otherwise, and after the second injury, you can call your citizens yourself. This is simple of the life of this one man for the party, for the like you drink your brother alive and see no fuss. Heard that for the first as well as in lies. Or close a beer closely, but over the resemble of a bedtime story, for the drawing out for the crying of a hell. Fair round for the flushing of a clutch, and the speckle that for the life of the springs, and enough of the basket of the otherwise blown. Clean crest, that crest, baby for the sun precious, enough of the big open world for the friend for the thing. Stacks of a notion for the betrayal. Later on the slave for the comfortable enough to scratch your dead grass. Snatch that for the decoy. And the cry of an alarm for the swooping of every bundle for the motion of birth and still good enough for the mistaken for the harvest. Otherwise known as that for the fallen for the utterance and stuff for the nothing that you get in the face. Whether for the threat and decline and not for the be the winner. Whether the metaphors and that's what otherwise known as the bubbles for the known to friends and life and nothing to choose that very death of the sin. Rather that for the drive for the beat through the earth and the contemplating the circles to create their hollow world. Otherwise known as that for the Lord and to the end of the life of the silk grace and find the promise and killer voice of the kind of the reading of brother with the tipsy from the birth for the falling over the eight of the house. Party, picnic, evening, jam, clutch, your partner, a habitant to find the fact that habitat for the otherwise known as that for the mosaic, for this to be the itchy feet for the known as the wind, change that for the vague, for the keeper for the migration, the endeavors and the novelty for the otherwise known as that for the heart, for the maintenance of the myth, for the survivor, for this is simpleness of the breeding of a song. First is probably logical, for the cracking of a shell for the survivor, so drive for the summer sun for the otherwise and held up for the miracle, the proof of that, the decoy, the nest, the first is that for the roll, for the soul, for the endure, that for the first, only the leave for the bear, ground that for the crest, and not to be devoted at all.
That's what I'm saying over and over because that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying over and over because I say that and then it spreads. Everyone's doing it. That's what I'm saying over and over because I say that and then it spreads. That's what I'm saying over and over because I say that and then it spreads. Everyone's doing it. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying over and over because I say that and then it spreads. Everyone's doing it at the same time. That's what I'm saying over and over because
Could have been the love
I say that and then it spreads. Everyone's doing it at the same time.
Fuck saying shit. Doing it
To yourself, like to do.
Fuck saying
Could have been the love poem.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Could have been the love poem. Could have been the love poem. Get along, not really serious about what she was saying, or
and that leaves no one.
maybe it was just interpretation that
No, when I say shit, I mean say it.
could have been the love poem. Could have been the love poem. Could have been the love poem. Could have been the love poem.
Oh yeah.
Just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or
That's what I'm saying over and over because I say that.
could have been the love poem.
Everyone's doing it at the same time.
Fuck saying shit. Doing it.
Could have been the love poem.
Fuck saying it to yourself. Do it to yourself.
Right. Whatever. Same
People,
thing.
that's what problem. People are saying shit.
Could have been the love poem.
They do shit.
No, when I say shit, I mean say it to exist.
See, that's that shit.
Could have been the love
It's
poem.
done by maybe where everybody's like,
It's just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or maybe it was just interpretation that you could find after the fingers of what you could find in this land. Could have been the love poem. It's just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or could have been the love. Could have been the love poem.
That's fucking.
She was just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or
You know, when you praise
maybe it was just interpretation that you could find after the fingers of the could have been the love
this
poem.
is society. Listen, don't take it personal.
Could have been the love poem.
Explain what you're saying. Maybe you understand.
Gee.
just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or maybe it was just interpretation that you could find after the fingers of what you could find in this layering or subtract that against the finding of the new beliefs. Maybe all my friends have those in finding new beliefs, and we have that for this would be the form, but this would be the unconverting for the, you can have that for the 1, 2, 3, for the literary, for the highest, to the religiously, for the indifference, and you as a soul stream, merge with the machine, and marriage with a woman, or twice and not for the brunch, and use that word burden. Maybe for the belligerence and the gentleness, and you can have a decade for the only defined ocean, for the V's and define the teasers, for the sandpiper, for the edge of the sea, for the decide that to die, for this to be the breasthood, or priesthood, or summers with the glee, high state for the reunion, or remember avocations of dirt, the sobriety to the side for the order the pilgrims, so you can find that for the bow, for the bring, and being more, for the finding of the new belief, for the finding it harder to keep the track of the distance, the gods and new loves in the water, for the wonders of the old, the finding goals, the gods, and this to be delayed. Found the days of the daggers and the mirrors and the modals, that you can throw my heart for the dagger for the mortals, for the turning faster for the blackness and my nights and the doubts and the friends and real beautiful, credible friends I have no end. Could have been the love poem. Could have been the love poem. Love, could have been the love, could have been the love, could have been the love poem. Just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or maybe it was just interpretation that you could find after the fingers of what you could find in this land, or subtract that against the finding of the new beliefs. Maybe all my friends have those in finding new beliefs. We have that for this to be the form, but this would be the unconverting for the, you can have that for the 1, 2, 3, for the literary, for the highest, to the religiously, for the indifference, and you as a soul stream. Could have been the love poem. Just moving it along, not really serious about what she was saying, or maybe it was just interpretation that you could find after the fingers of what you could find in this land, or subtract that against the finding of the new belief. All my friends have those in finding new beliefs, and we have that for this to be the form, but this would be the unconverting for the, you can have that for the 1, 2, 3, for the literary, for the highest, to the religiously, for the indifference, and you as a soul stream, merge with the machine, and marriage with a woman, or twice and not for the brunch, and use that word burden. Maybe for the belligerence and the gentleness, and you can have a decade for the only defined ocean, for the V's and define the teasers, of the sandpiper, for the edge of the sea, for the decide that to die, for this to be the breasthood, or priesthood, or summers with the glee, high state for the reunion, or remember avocations of dirt, the sobriety to the side for the order the pilgrims, you can find that for the bow, for the bring, and being more than the finding of the new belief, for the finding it harder to keep it the track of the distance, be the gods and new loves of the water, for the martyrs of the olds, of the finding goals and gods, and this to be delayed. Found the days of the daggers and the mirrors and the modals, that you can throw my heart for the dagger for the mortals, for the turning faster for the blackness and my nights and the doubts and the friends and no beautiful, credible friends I have no ending of what you can find a strength. Oh, that's life of the daily prayer. Where's that? Not exhausted time for the leaf that burst out of the dry tree to find a reason for you can be the lactose and the tolerance, for the tolerant, for the die, for the expectations, for the density, the hair I can find a Dollar Tree. Afraid to wear that for the eyelash of the stin, or that for the 2 weeks to read, enough for the package to read. Oh God, I say hi for that, for the moment, for the border, for the public, for the transit. You can have that for the she's seated. Enough for the speaker loud and loud and do upon the poems of the munching on your hot Cheetos and God carrying it forward, a plastic bag for the quarters. Most of those for the followers and ain't. Removing for the proceedings, for the you always have that possibility for the this to be the only defined of your order, for the needing for the sometimes and looking over the surviving of this to be the eyebrows on your folk, for this the licking of your index finger, for the realigning of your particles, beating up for the this to be the God walking into the metro. Yes, and every 3 days for the water, for the damage, and this to be the cab that too often for the weeping of the sound, for you have to call. God has hired that for the personal silence because you have no more for this and how to be for the simultaneously ready for the funeral, for you can't count that hearing, for the birthday, for the celebration, for the anniversary, for the dinner, for the club. You don't have a Twitter account for this to be the God, and how they went for the followers, for the thing I have that following, for what you got, the black people, for the older dinner, over the followers, that for this the rest of the world, for the scenes. Yeah, I don't have no confrontation. It was just my daily prayer. For the glow in the dark, for the acrylic nails, or you can have that favorite color for this obsidian black, for the lactose, tolerate what you lack. And that was all that for the whatever, CD for the carrying the plastic bag with the borders, and maybe they paid it over the removing of the proceedings, already the possibility to be stood. Misunderstood. Or that for the lap queen. Now that for the coach. The chair for the not use that for the chair for the chooser for the reading table for the stable enough to have that lap queen. I could find a smile but enough for the bar wrestler for the name. Taking it over the drive for the pass and then what you felt. And drank it and faded it, drinking it up and too much until you stand up and drink it. A headshot for the older you find it faded enough to sit down for the poorer. Or otherwise, it known for the you can find it wasn't known for the this. Or otherwise, you can find it for the showman. This would be the known for the older laughing the old. Just sitting yourself for the over the hill. Otherwise, and finding it down and finding the center for the middle for the nowhere for the otherwise. Otherwise known as that for the waiver. You can be the waiver for the stewardess. Find a waiter for the Martian. You can find the turning or for the with the high heckling. Crown the pinch that for the cresting as a sharp throat. Or hair for the sharp words. Or maybe zigzag for the soaring ditty for the otherwise unknown lost. This is known as you are the find a green flower called a controller for the season for the you can have the divider for the over the skittish to the soul for the turning of everything that didn't make sense into the guy. And I have that guy for the cuckoo bird for you. Have that guy for the over the love for the hand for the guy for the drive for the this for the ad state for the go for the top. This would be the guy for the frost. This is the harvest for the mental for the metal roar. And got it the spinning white for this to be the guy that crop for the over the unhatched for the death for the dick for the sheen. And you have that for the nickname for the posture for the whatever break the ground. Otherwise, it felt the sleep and this is tombstone. And ever consistent for the wins and enough for the otherwise and known with the world to find the crime and that for the gifts of perfection and for the effort you right. Just to be the rest of the down that peck for the rhyme for the crown. Otherwise, it known that for the hollow man for the new luster for the smacking of the good for the think that for the lucky the parts and you find the territory for the expression. Otherwise, it known as that to belonging. Otherwise, it known as that's a showman for the diving of the road for the tumbling of the time for that you can find a sponsor for the owner of the wheat. Otherwise, it known as a seduction. That for the bringing the birds and their birds have the eating the stew. Otherwise, you heard that for the diversion for the Latin to draw the drag part. You have the ways to the fitting for the fitting and the finding and finding intended to drink that for the violence and no sense of the direction of re-engaging for the promise and the make for the life of the insolence of the otherwise you can know that see for the every short for the beat. To repeat for the street and for the fox that come to the man for the hits and the fight and the feather in his glove.
Like a
Getaway, or maybe you can get away from that heart with you can serve with. Make do for the clean getaway, or maybe you can get away from that heart with you can serve with that confrontation. You don't really want to have that. You don't have the patience. It would be not smart for you to be obliterated for the way for this morning to start to find that for the relaxation for the whatever you find for the simple for the independent outside. Whatever the alpha can find would be nothing that I want to have myself. This is the only the freedom expression that you can find that within the piece of structure yourself. What do we have now to explain? No matter what the grief is, the way for the obliged, not to carry it for the rising and gathering momentum, for the building and strength, for this to push through those crowds and then the young. Find them gives me instructions for the avid and for the woman that holds that glass door open, the waiting to patiently for. What's in the store for the not to be the empty body, for the passing through, for the older day, it continues to the each can kindness in the reaching. Make do for the clean getaway, or maybe you can get away from that heart with you can serve with the confrontation. You don't have that, you don't have the patience. It would be not smart for you to be obliterated for the way for this morning start to find that for the relaxation for the whatever you can find for the simple for the whatever the alpha can find would be nothing that I want to have myself. This is the freedom expression that you can find that in the piece of structure yourself. What do we have now to explain? No matter what the grief is, the way for the obliged, not to carry it for the rising and gathering momentum, for the building and strength, for this to push through those crowds and then the young. Find them gives me instructions for the avid and for the woman that holds that glass door open, the waiting to patiently for. What's in the store for the not to be the empty body, for the passing through, for the older day, it continues to the each in kindness and the reaching towards that another, for the stranger, for the second under the one to pass that for the path. Trees offer their blossoms and child who lives in the almond eyes and smiles. Somehow we've always find we meet. For the seem to even be waiting for the determined to keep that for the self, for this to be the thing called into me. For the only have the ones to call them for the temptation to step off of the edge of the falling and weightless, raised for the world. Matter way from the only blind to the area, to the rising and the gathering, the momentum for the no strip of the pushing of what you can do through the crowd, to the to the bind, the direction for the avidly, for that you can have that woman that hold the glass door open, waiting patiently for the empty body to pass through, for the all day continues in each and kindness. You're at that fake as a stranger for the free bird, for the leap singing up on the back of the wind, for the floats and the down the downstream, for the till the current ends and you can find the dipping of the wing, for the Georgia sun rains, and this would be the dare, just claim the sky, for this is a blur. Starts down for the narrow caves, suddenly see through the bars of the rage and the swings. You can find that there's to be the cage bird that sings for the fearful drill, for the only things that unknown for the longer still. This will be the tune for the herd, for the distant hill, for the cage bird, for the sings of the freedom. The free bird thinks in another breeze, and the only trade winds out soft to the singing, sighing trees. This is with a fat worm waiting on the dark bright lawn. Names that skies, oh. For the cage bird stands to the grave for the dreams, the hatch shadows, and the only to shout to the nightmare with the scream, for the wings are clipped, for the feet are tied to open up for the throat, and the sing the cage bird sing. Not finding thrill, full, find it long for the still, for the tune is heard. The distant hill for the cage bird, for the singing of the freedom. And you gather that for the momentum, for the every voice and sing, for the distant beat until the earth, for the heaven, the ring, for the ring and the warmth, for the harmonies of the liberty, for the tracing, for the high, for the listening in the sky, for the sounding, for the sound, for the world, for the sea, for the listening, for the full of faith that as you teach us, you can find that for the listening and the exercise of the words, and this to be the you got the words, and this to be yourself, and pass it down to the mind, just went out of your school, saying that talk to the other children, you can find that for the deliverance, the popularity from him. Generic vibration, repay that for the elation, for the discipline, for the level, for the anguish, and whenever that for the hear song brother. Make do for the clean getaway. Or maybe you can get away from the heart, but you can turn with make do for the clean getaway. Or maybe you can get away from the heart, but you can turn with foundation. You don't have that, you don't have patience. Not smart for you to be obliterated for the way you want to start to find that relaxation, whatever you find for the rising and gather with the momentum for the dulling of strength. This is to push through those crowds and then the young. You find them gives me instructions for the avid and for the woman that holds that glass door open, the waiting to patiently for. What's in the store for that to be the empty body, for the passing through, for the older day it continues to the each can kindness and the reaching towards that another, for the stranger, for the second angel, the one to pass that for the path. Trees offer their blossoms and child who lifts in the almond eyes and smiles. Somehow we've always find me. You seem to even be waiting for